Are you ready to break free from the daily grind and pursue a career and lifestyle that truly resonates with your passion? If you have been longing for more authenticity and fulfillment, we have got a fantastic guest for you on our virtual global leadership podcast. We're delighted to introduce Christine, a dedicated advocate for helping individuals like you transform their lives and find fulfillment without the constant need for vacations. Christine is a seasoned HR professional with a rich and diverse background in Silicon Valley's tech startup scene. She embarked on a career journey as a recruiter and later transited into a project management role where she focused on enhancing the hiring process, elevating candidate experience, and fostering employee happiness. Her genuine passion for people's well being in the workplace naturally led her to explore new paths. But Christine's story doesn't end there. She's also an avid globetrotter who embarked on a life changing solo backpacking adventure through Central America 6 years ago. The experience ignited a bold decision to relocate to Buenos Aires, where she immersed herself in different cultures and pursued her coaching certification. During her time abroad, she not only honed her fluency in Spanish but also crafted a fully remote career and lifestyle. Christian's unique blend of career transitions, HR expertise, globetrotting adventures, and coaching journey has ignited her passion for helping others discover fulfillment in their career and lifestyles. This is an incredible opportunity to learn from Christine and connect with like minded individuals who share your aspirations. So let's welcome Christine. Welcome. How are you?
Wow, what a amazing and introduction. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yes. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am wonderful and excited to hear from you on your life journey, your experiences, your successes, failures, and most importantly, how are you helping uh, you know uh, uh, ambitious individuals who want to have a right balance in their work life and lifestyle. So yeah, looking forward to hearing your perspectives, Christine.
Yes, I'm
So
excited to share more today.
yes. So I'm a little curious to know how your, let's say, your career in career coaching started, and particularly remote work.
Yeah, well, it's been a journey, I have to say. So there's been multiple nudges that started my desire to become a career coach. It all started early in my career. I entered in public accounting and I experienced early career burnout to the point that I was so mentally and physically exhausted that I was losing hair. I was highly stressed and I just got to a breaking point where I knew something had to change. And so I actually went to a career coach back then, and she recommended a book, and I guided myself on that journey
Which
to
book?
transition. Um, it's called Do What You Are. It's
Okay.
about aligning your personality with your career path. And so I dug deep into my personality and I realized, wow, I was in such a misaligned career for who core parts of myself. And I ended up moving into HR and recruiting. And that first experience was kind of my first nudge like, wow, this was really challenging. I learned a lot and would love to help others through something like this. And then I moved into HR and recruiting tech, which I really loved working in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. And I learned a ton working in early to late stage startups. But I always had this itch to get abroad. And so that's kind of what started my journey to leave the city and go backpacking. And then that was just transformative in itself. And that really nudged me to go after an international job search was yet another big challenge. And I went all in on that job search with the goals of moving to Latin America because I developed a deep passion for travel and for Latin America itself. And that is then what guided me into a role in Latin America in Buenos Aires. And so I started my career abroad there. And in my experience moving abroad, and I, for the first time, faced the most severe values misalignment in a job I'd ever had to the point that I would cry in the bathroom. Honestly, I struggled to show up for work. And at the same time, I knew I wanted to pursue a remote career. So it felt like the universe was just like, you have to leave this job for so many reasons. and I left a job without a plan in a foreign country. Let's say another huge challenge, maybe the biggest challenge I had experienced yet. And when I did that and I started to pursue a fully remote career, I was like, I need to help others on this journey. I've learned so much from all of these circumstances and working through them. And so that's when I started my coaching certification. And at the same time, I went all in on my remote job search and ended up finding a remote job that I was able to pair with my coaching. So all of that as a full journey inspired me to help others on their journeys because I've learned so much through all of these very challenging yet very expansive and experiences that have really grown me as a person and as a coach.
Thank you for sharing that. Of course, this sounds like, it's a roller coaster. And of course, people are usually with you when they see success around. But when you are facing challenges, usually you are the one who feels it. And then, of course, the true people or friends or the loved ones come to you and they support you. So could you take us to some of the incident or some of the dark, let's say, phase in this journey, and how did you manage it, and what advice you have for folks who might be experiencing a similar, let's say, pain?
Wow, such a great question. Wow, I can't express how challenging some of those periods were.
Mhm.
Honestly, honestly, one of the most challenging was being abroad and making that decision without my support system of my family and friends with me in Buenos Aires in a foreign country when I left a job without a plan, right? And so honestly, I learned so much about just independence and self-reliance, but I also leaned into my support system virtually. And I'm also so grateful that I had made a local network of both locals and expats that supported me when I was going through a huge life change and transition. So I think my advice is don't be afraid to lean on others for support when you need it because you can't do everything alone. And this is why us as coaches are here, right? This is why I'm doing what I'm doing now because I really wanted that support in that time. And now I can be that person for others. Um, but also, there's your family, there's friends, like opening up to them about it. And then I would say being resilient. One of the biggest skills this taught me was resilience. And that is something that I think is, I'm so grateful despite all of the really maybe the lows of the roller coaster, that's what's come out of it. So I would say your grit and resilience really will be valuable for the rest of your career and your life.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. You made a very interesting point on the support system you nurtured virtually. Okay, what advice you have for folks who might, let's say, these are some of the jargons or the terms that people usually use, that is introvert, extrovert. But I want first you to clarify on that, and secondly, someone who is really wanting to create that support system both virtually and offline. But let's say in the given context, I would love to know more on the virtual side from you, how that
Yeah.
should be nurtured. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging when you're in different time zones from those that are your support system, right? So I had to really organize times to connect with people based on our time zone difference. And also, again, it's back to opening up of needing support during that time, right? Letting people know, oh, I'm going through this huge career transition. Um, I would like I need your support to a sibling or to a parent, right? Or to a close friend. But it takes effort on your side and also being mindful of we all have our things going, we all have our things going on. And virtually it can be more, you're not face to face. So you have to really organize this time. You have to be proactive about, you have to reach out to others. So yeah, it's not like walking up to someone in another room, say.
Absolutely, absolutely. Christine, I would like to know more on, people usually fear of being judged when they're in the process of, getting uh, openly sharing their vulnerability to create that trust, or for that matter, seek the support. Like, what was your experience, and whether it is okay to be vulnerable, or how do one crack that?
Yeah. Well, I love Brené Brown's work, and many may be familiar with it. But I think vulnerability is is power. When you share your vulnerability, it makes others feel safe to also be vulnerable. And I think in this world, we need a lot more of that. So this full journey, I've been very vulnerable and open about. I'm sharing with you right now, so others don't feel alone if they go through the roller coaster themselves, right? If they go through those ups and downs, and to open up about it to others will empower them to open up about their challenges, and this is how we support each other, right?
Great. Yes, absolutely, Christine. Uh, so, Christine, I would like to know more from your now expertise that, while folks are wanting to transit to a nomadic life, what are some of the key challenges, they face, and how do you then help them overcome them?
Yeah, well, you just named a huge one, fear of judgment. I think many people, it's a different way of living. So many people fear the judgment. But there's so many things I hear that others are struggling with building this lifestyle and clients, right? It can range from the logistics, like how do I even start? Where do I go? What do I need? And those logistical challenges, I can provide tools and guidance, right? Resources, I mean, I've lived this lifestyle now for multiple years, so things from my own experience. But the bigger challenges that people face, I think, are deeply rooted in fear and limiting beliefs. And this takes deeper coaching to work through, whether it's fear of societal expectations, fear of families' expectations, fear of change, fear of different environments, entering a foreign country, for example. There's so much fear that can come up, and it takes really working through that fear and going after taking that leap to see the other side. And from someone who's lived it, I can say it's so worth it. And there's so much beauty and transformation on the other side. And I'm so grateful to have worked through that fear myself, which is why I'm so passionate about helping others, because there's so much to experience when you work past that fear and you actually get to live the beauty of this lifestyle, because there's so much growth and transformation that comes from it.
Absolutely. Christine, what are let's say top five non-negotiable skills one has to develop if they want to take this path of remote work life or nomadic lifestyle?
Oh, great question. Oh my, there are some definite skills for this lifestyle. And the immediate first gut instinct answer is adaptability and flexibility, because there will be challenges, and it does take getting being flexible, right? And being adaptable and quick problem solving, right? Another is proactivity and um, self motivation. That's huge for remote work. Like, there's no micromanaging. You are taking full ownership of your work. So that is critical. I would say excellent communication, because we've talked about virtual already, the difference between virtual and face to face. You've got to be an excellent communication or communicator and understand other people's communication channels as well, right? Uh, Time management and prioritization is huge. Again, taking full ownership of your work and doing it in a remote setting. Also, in the lifestyle, balancing out the beauty of adventure and foreign destinations, you've got to manage your time and prioritize. I'm trying to think of some others. I think there's an endless list. Also, really knowing remote tools, right? Like, we're using this platform right now. There's Zoom, there's Asana, and other tools for project management. There's Slack. It's a different way of communicating. So, really knowing those remote channels for both your work and lifestyle.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christine. For I think I asked for five, but you gave 15 skills. Thank you for creating value for our viewers. Uh, Christine, it would be great to know one to be feel free to express on some of the success stories of your career coaching work and the impact it has created to that particular person's or a team's life. Please feel free to share that.
Yes, yes. And this is one of the most fulfilling parts of coaching, I'm sure for other coaches as well, is client successes, right? And client
Yeah.
growth. And those can be big and small, right? There's big and small wins for us all. One example is I had a client who was feeling stuck in her career and knew she wanted to go fully remote, but didn't quite know her direction of what she wanted to do. So, I mean, I love supporting others through career shifts and transitions. As I shared earlier, I went through some of my own, and I never think it's too late to change your career. I really believe our careers evolve, and that can happen at different points in our lives, right? So, I really supported her to identify how she wanted to pivot her skill set to something that relit that spark in her. And she went after that fully remote role. And I loved her determination, her grit, her willingness to go to do the uncomfortable, to stand out in her job search. And she ended up landing her dream job at a company with a great culture. And this allowed her to work remotely and travel back to her hometown to be with her family when she needed. And also, her partner works kind of music gigs and travels. So she was able to travel with him with her work. And I just don't think that's just one example, but I think the beauty of remote work, and as us remote advocates know, like it stems from things like that, to the ability to be with loved ones when you need to be with them, to the ability to work towards your peak physical fitness and improve your health, to the ability for those with disabilities to work. Like, I think there's so many beauties and important factors that remote work allows for individuals. And most importantly, I think it's the prioritization of personal health and well being, which in turn allows us to show up better for our work. So that's why I'm so passionate about remote work and supporting others to achieve it, because I think that um, individuals should be able to prioritize themselves, right? And remote work really allows for that while showing up at their best for their careers. And I think that's a win-win all around.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Then, what are some of the common misconceptions about remote work, and how do you address them with the job seekers or clients?
Yes, I mean, I'm sure we've all heard a lot of these. And one that I can't that really irks me is remote workers never work and aren't productive or are less productive. And not
Yes.
never work, but that we're less productive, because I have never been more productive than when I went remote, I will say. Um, I think we're all different personality types, but as someone who's a bit more introverted, the office culture sometimes I was like a bit overwhelmed with between meetings and not having my like heads down work. So as a remote worker, I've been extra productive, like hyper productive at times. Of course, we have our ebbs and our flows, right? Maybe you can relate on that. But also, another thing is that remote work is lonely. As someone who's embraced this type of work away from my community back home, right? So I started this abroad and traveled to foreign destinations. That you could say is the most lonely way to do this type of work. But I beg to differ with that, because I think that I've been able to connect with so many amazing people and have connection through this type of work in co working spaces, in cafes, in varying my work environment. And it's actually been more empowering in a sense, because I've experienced it on a global level with people doing different types of work that I learned from just through a conversation over coffee in a co working space, right? So, those are two huge, I feel, misconceptions that I needed to bring up right now, because I do not think remote work is lonely. It can be, but there's so many ways to make sure you're not lonely as you're remote working. And I think you can be extremely productive working remotely.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, because
Yeah.
when I hear stories of, I may not name the organizations, but I'm sure a lot of organizations whose genesis, the DNA were remote, they are asking folks to join back. By the way, what's your take on that? Maybe we can take the names. Why not? Let's say Zoom. They ask their team members to get back. What's your take on that?
I'm just I mean, that one threw me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie, considering a remote tool. Well, I'm all about uh, actions aligning with words and mission aligning with how companies show up. So, if that says a bit of my take, I think that, I mean, I hear the hybrid model. I hear why companies are doing it.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that I have a lot of opinions on this topic, but one overall opinion I have is that I think the beauty of different work models is the power of choice. And going back to what I said is I think that individuals should be able to prioritize themselves so they can best show up for their work, right? So I think that a beauty of how the pandemic period transformed work and remote work getting the spotlight more is that now we have these different ways of working so an individual can choose what is best for them because what is best for me is not necessarily what is best for you or best for someone else, right? So I think that I respect the different models. At the same time, I think that a lot of companies going back to returning to office are not fully hearing the voices of their employees, and we will see how that plays out. But employees' voices matter. They're the ones who are showing up every day and bringing in that revenue and making the impact to make that mission possible. So I think employee voices deserve to be heard. And I think a lot of companies are working to do this in terms of surveys and taking feedback, but I definitely think return to office is not fully supported by a lot of people being called back to the office.
Absolutely. Christian, based on your research findings, what future do you see of remote work, especially let's say in the Asian continent, let's say India or China, or what are your findings? It would be great to
Yeah. And I'm going to say I'm not fully an expert in every piece of
uh,
remote work, right? I'm constantly learning. And as we see, the market is constantly changing, and I'm reading and following to best support clients and to best stay up on top of the trends. Let's say that remote is one of the most dynamic areas to stay on top of. I'm sure we can all relate on this. It's like, and it's kind of, I mean, it makes it exciting and challenging, that we're always learning. But I just believe that remote is here to stay. I think that that is just the reality. It was here before, and it's here, it's still here, and it's growing. I think return to office is happening, of course. Hybrid models are becoming more of a norm, but remote isn't leaving, and remote opportunities continue to grow. I watch the job boards, right? So
yeah.
my belief is that it's here to stay. It's just a matter of how is it going to continue to evolve.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Christian, for sharing that. Can you also share some tips, suggestions for an international job search? For seekers who want to uh, grab that remote work. What are some of the tips and suggestions?
Yes, of course. Well, I look at international job searching and remote work as a bit different, right? You can be looking for fully remote work where you can work from anywhere, or you can be looking to move to a country, like my experience moving to Buenos Aires and finding a job that gives you the allows you to have a working visa to be in the country for a longer period. So, to talk about an international job search, my tips are to first get clear on what are you looking for. Like, you got to know what job you want. This is my general job search tip,
Yeah.
like for any role. It's get clear on what you want because that makes the rest of the process much easier. And that's something I help clients through is finding clarity. It's not always the easiest piece, but especially for someone looking to make a change, right? But first being really clear on what role, what job you're targeting internationally and making sure it aligns with your skill set, right? If you need to gain additional skills or experience, you can do that. But making sure it aligns. And I want to also say, you don't always need to meet 100% of a job description. I feel like many can get limited by that. And it's like, no, go for it, but make sure it's aligned with your skills, right? In your background. And then the next piece is make sure you're clear on where you're targeting. You've got the world when you're looking at international job search. So be clear on what regions you're targeting and do your research to know, for example, when I moved to Argentina, did my research to understand visa requirements, kind of like that cultural awareness of differences in your application process, getting really clear on what companies and roles are available in that region. Um, and so being confident you want to be there because a company does not want a flight risk of you coming and being like, oh, not for me, I'm heading home. So confidence that this location is somewhere you want to be. And then another tip I have is check out global companies, right? One way in getting of getting to an international role could be joining a role in your local office, but they have a global location you can transfer into. So that's always an option. And then last, it's networking, because as we know, like, networking is so critical, whether you're applying to an in-office, hybrid, or remote job. Networking is a key part of the process. So start networking with others in the region you're planning to head, and attend events, whether that's in person or virtually, but really start getting to know people and putting it out there what you're looking for in this international location.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. With the rising, let's say, war, the other war has also started. How can someone uh, plan that transition with so much of uncertainties? Let's say post COVID, right? Uh, what are your thoughts and suggestions to folks who might be slightly insecure on this front? What are your first thoughts that comes to you?
Yeah, I mean, uncertainty is part of life, right? It's letting the passion drive you, right? Timelines can be uncertain. There, but I'm a strong believer that everything is possible. I'm a dreamer, as they say. So I believe that you can achieve anything you want. The timeline is unknown, but it's pushing past those fears and continuing, and this is super important, to take aligned action, because action is what propels you forward towards your goals, right? You can't let that fear, like, keep you stagnant. It's continuing to take those steps. And again, clarity is very important. So knowing the direction you're going, but not letting fear of the unknown or uncertainties in the world hold you back. And keeping your vision, holding the vision.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. Now, let me leverage your HR expertise here. Okay. What are some of the non negotiables from an HR point of view when they're just going through the CV, when they're looking at the CV? Maybe the candidate is really nice. They have not had that interaction with him. What are some of those findings and learnings? It would be great to get that from you.
Yeah, I mean, resumes are something I'm constantly constantly coaching about, and it's an art, as I like to say. But a recruiter spends about 6 seconds. That's the standard time on a resume. So the key is, like, targeting your resume. It's so clear when it's something fired into the hole, right? When it's not targeted. So I would say starting with that initial summary that's on the resume is really targeting that to stand out. And I call that, like, your elevator pitch. So
Yeah.
it's like your brief pitch to hook a recruiter to keep reading your resume. So it's really being intentional in targeting that to each job, so that when a recruiter or HR hiring manager, whoever is reading the resume, starts to read through it, knows that you are a fit, because you're showcasing your value, versus it's just something standard that you apply to another role with, that they can see was not tailored to their position. And for remote, this is extremely important because it's hyper competitive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that elevator pitch. That summary is so important. And how can one really plan that summary? Because most of the times people write from their heart, which is, let's say, important. But now we
Yes.
have, like, let's say, tools such as chat gpt or some other AI tools to kind of make it even better. But then how do one integrate that to write an effective resume? What are your thoughts?
Ooh, I have a lot of opinions about AI and resumes if we want to get into it, or in cover letters too. I think AI is a great tool to help with editing, to help with like under with yeah, with editing, with positioning, but I think authenticity matters.
Hmm.
And recruiters can see if it's just AI crafting your resume, right?
Yeah.
So you said something about writing from the heart.
Yeah.
And I want to say, add to that, of writing with passion. I'm a strong believer that on a job search, and this is from my experience too, managing those challenging transitions I shared, that passion is what sells you as a candidate. And passion can be felt, right? So if you write that summary with that passion intertwined, that can be felt. AI cannot write passion from your authentic place, right? So I'm all about using AI to support on the job search in terms of editing. But one thing I think AI can't do is authentically show your passion for a role or your passion for a company. And that has to come from you writing your summary, right? So using it, but making sure your passion is shining through, making sure, of course, you're showcasing the skills. But I mean, the passion is what can distinguish you.
But Christine, do you see that? And this is with, I mean, with great respect.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, do you think sometimes, not from an HR point of view, but from, let's say, because the CV goes to various folks, maybe to the even team members who might be working with the new person. So, do you think that there is a possibility that sometimes we have to write what they want to hear? We have to
of
write.
course.
Okay. And
Yes.
how
And go
then
ahead,
how do you
continue.
balance that the passion and what they want to hear?
Well, they want to hear passion. They want to know you want this job, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about writing your passion in a summary, right? Your passion can be written in your cover letter, but your skill set and showcasing that is extremely important for the summary, right? But what I'm saying is intertwining the piece of passion for, say, the company and the company mission, because that isn't always done. And that is what tells them this person really wants to be here and to be here for a longer term, right? Versus someone who just writes their skill set in a summary without showing any extra desire or passion for the role, right? Or to
Yes.
grow in the company. So I'm not saying it needs to be just a summary all about just your passion, right? You've got to show your skills and your value. But I'm saying artfully intertwining your passion can really help you to stand out.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Thank you for sharing that. So, Christine, how do
Thanks for
you
sharing.
manage your work-life balance? And in this podcast series, I have been interacting with a lot of remote leaders, and now they use the word work-life integration. So, what is it?
Ooh,
Yeah. So what's how do you manage for yourself?
ooh, I love work life integration. And that's so true to this lifestyle of remote work and traveling because you are integrating your work into your life, right? You're bringing it to foreign environments. And this is the ultimate challenge of this lifestyle, right? It's balance. And this can look different for everyone. If you're a remote worker, a freelancer, an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, this looks different. But I would say it comes down to some fundamentals, which is prioritization, time management, and proactively creating balance. Because balance just doesn't happen. We have to create it for ourselves, right? So, a critical tool for me for this is time blocking. And I try to do it religiously. I can say that I have my ebbs and my flows, but I literally plan out my weeks in a Google Calendar with time blocks, including like salsa dance classes, including meeting with a friend for dinner, right? So that it's a way of visually representing balance in the week by seeing it all mapped out in a calendar. Um, Sometimes that feels super structured. So, a tip I have, because I am someone who loves flow and leaving space for flow in life, is sometimes I'll do a large block and call it a flow block. So, it's like whatever intuitively is happening then that I want to do or follow, I leave that time open for flow. So, that's a way to balance structure with flow.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing a very practical perspective. As I shared with you, I was part of one of the spiritual retreats recently, and I heard this beautiful saying. This is from a very, let's say, philosophical level, but again, it said that you manage your priorities, time will automatically come to the come in sync with that. And I was keeping thinking, yeah, because once you're prioritizing it, you're putting it in the calendar, so you plan your priorities, and time will automatically be managed. So I was like, okay, wow, that's a very good like very good way to look at it. So I just thought of
Oh,
quickly
I
sharing
love
that.
that. Thank you for sharing that. I love it. And I feel like that's so true. When you manage your priorities, things start to fall into place and you discover time, more time than you thought you had almost. I really agree with that.
Yes, yes. So, Christine, what advice you have for job seekers in terms of building or managing their own work life integration, because it is quite a challenge. You have to sit through. I don't like to use the word rejection, but then that's also the part and parcel of the game. So what advice you have on their, let's say, mental well-being, plus the plus how they not get distracted in this process.
Yeah, and I wanna normalize rejection, like, rejection is okay, everyone, like, rejection is part of the process. I wanna make everyone feel like rejection is part of a job search. If you're facing it, you're not alone. Like, I face it on my job searches, clients face it. It's part of, finding that aligned match. I think I lost you. Are you still here? But yeah, rejection, I'm just gonna continue because I think you'll be coming back. But rejection is part of the process, right? But it doesn't make it easy. I like the quote that is rejection is redirection. Uh, but I would say an important thing to manage this. I've continued in your back. Yes.
Sure, sure, sure.
Um, so I said a favorite quote is rejection is redirection, right? And
Yes,
I say rejection is redirection towards a more aligned fit. So
yes,
a way that I would say to manage kind of just the maybe overwhelm of the job search and rejection itself is I think I take it to energy management. So it's
yes,
really knowing your energy levels, right? When you're at your peak energy levels in your day, make that the time for your most challenging job search tasks, right? That can look different for each person. Some people, and I hear this from clients, get really drained by LinkedIn, right? And
mm,
I say, okay, hop on LinkedIn when you're at your peak energy levels, when you feel at your best, and get in your LinkedIn time, get in your networking, and then go to your other tasks, right? So I would say pairing your most, and I don't like the word daunting, but things can be daunting, right? Overwhelming tasks for your peak energy levels, and then the tasks that you can do easier, more easily for when your energy levels drop a bit. And then another thing is time blocking too. Just
yeah,
like you do this for a full time job, time block your job search. So you're making space for all the things you need to do. And a job search can be a job. Let's be real, right? So you've got to make space and block it out in your schedule.
absolutely, absolutely. So, what advice you have for folks who have been in the traditional way of working for long, and now they are wanting to transit to the remote working lifestyle?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. It is an adjustment, but many of us got a preview of it, or most during the pandemic, right? I think that it's just a new way of working, right? You're not in an office, you can't walk up to someone. So first, it's make sure you're equipped. You have all the equipment you need to work remotely. I mean, if
Yes,
you have a fully remote role, many companies provide the equipment, so that's not, but if you're a freelancer, you need all of that independently, right? So making sure you're fully equipped to work remotely. Another tip is you've got to be a lot more proactive when you're remote with kind of your onboarding and training process. So companies will outline it for you, but you need to proactively ask the questions in a remote way. So scheduling one-on-ones with a manager, or if you have a team, if you are a manager remotely, scheduling one-on-ones with your direct reports, right? To make sure that you're asking the appropriate questions, and getting the feedback you need in a remote setting, whether that's onboarding or timely feedback as you're growing in your role. It just takes more proactivity than in office settings, say. But it's all possible in virtual meetings, right? So, another thing I would say is effective communication, really learning remote communication channels. It's when I went remote, this was a huge shift of learning like the water coolers and Slack, um, understanding whether we're going from email first or Slack first, or do I just call them, you know? So it's knowing your company when you're entering a new roles, communication channels and kind of like the levels of if something's urgent, what communication channel to use versus if something is less time sensitive. So communication is critical. Another I would say is building culture in a remote setting. So connecting with your team. It's not going to look like going to get a coffee in the middle of your day, right? Instead, it's sending an invite for a coffee chat or sending an invite for just a virtual catch up. Or it's really being active in the water cooler chat in Slack. So it's learning to connect with your team members and build culture in a remote setting is another piece. There's so many pieces to this, but these are some of the ones that I think are really critical. And I would say that one is just if you need something, first being resourceful and seeing if you can figure it out independently, and then not being afraid to ask, whether it's setting up a virtual call or questions in Slack, because you got to get your work done. So you've got to find your ways to kind of get your needed information as especially as you're transitioning into a role.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. Um, so there are various let's say folks who want to be part of this remote lifestyle. There could be someone who are first timers who might be out of their, let's say, educational institute. Now they want to perceive a remote working life. Then there are people who might have worked for, let's say, 5 to 6 years in a traditional setup and now they want to transit to remote. And there are people who have been in the remote setup since very long. Now they have taken a break and now they want to pursue a different path. So I'm just
Yeah.
sharing, let's say these are three, there could be more, but these are the three things that come to me. um, what are your, how have your experiences been, helping different types of, let's say, requests that come to you for transition? And if you could share some insights, it would be great.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about coaching and the beauty of coaching is there's no one size fits all. Every client is unique, every client situation is unique. Even a client managing a similar transition, one will not look like the other. And
Yeah.
this is what I learned so deeply in my certification that I've brought into my work is that I treat every client as a unique new, say, project, right? I don't want to say project, but like as uniquely their own and that I discover through the process with them how best to guide them because they are the guide, because the answers are within them for what they want, right? I do not this is the thing about especially making a big life change or a career transition or like I can't tell someone this job is for you. I can't tell someone this destination abroad is for you, right? That lies within them. So the coaching process is so unique to each person. So how I manage this is through coaching and powerful questioning to uncover what that individual really wants and then to help them work towards that. For example, I've had clients come to me for remote work initially, and what do you know? They don't want remote work. They want to start their business. And I'm not going to tell them to go after remote work because they came to me for remote work. I want them to go out after what they want to go after. And so I support them on the journey to taking the steps to go after that, right? So um, each client journey is so unique, and I learn from every client. And that's also the beauty of coaching.
You mentioned a very important part of asking powerful questions. Okay, for the viewers who are watching, maybe over this week, what are one or two questions one must be introspecting and reflecting on? Because these questions sometimes you may not have an answer instantly. Some questions are designed to make you introspect. Can you share a couple of one or two questions?
Ooh. Ah. Well, there's like, if no fear was stopping you, what would you be doing right now? Right? That was a huge one that was transformative for me.
Wow.
Um, yes. I mean, there's so, let's see, what else?
So that is very
Um,
powerful. I mean, I
yeah,
would take this entire night to think. Like here in, like it's nine, it's almost 10 p.m. So I'm just saying this is a very good question. What if there was no fear?
Yeah, what is let's on the spot coaching. What is your response to that? What would you be doing
No,
right
I would
now?
want some time to introspect. I would want some time.
Fair.
Yeah. But if you
Yeah.
ask me, hmm, I think COVID take away a lot. The pandemic took away a lot of fears, by the way. So I'm just thinking what fears I have. So I would really want to, because post COVID, I mean, so something that is coming naturally to me is that yes, maybe I was fearful of a few things, but seeing, like we saw a lot, right? We saw our loved ones leaving the planet. I saw my friends getting laid off. So I think with that, a lot of fear has gone. But yes, of course, for me at the moment, I think, will I be, one of the fear is that, will I be really living a fulfilling life? Yeah, for the next, let's say, 50 odd years that I am in the planet. So that is one question that comes to me. Like, really,
Mm.
am I going to live a fulfilling life? Really, I am taking efforts to live. That is, let's say, a fear that is coming to me now.
Wow. Yes, and I so hear you on like the past years allowing us, I mean, kind of guiding us to work through a lot of fears, right?
Yeah.
Given so much change in the world.
Yes, yes. Let's say one more fear is, okay, I have left let's say a very high paying or a high growth career path to be part of this, let's say remote and virtual lifestyle. So okay, how am I progressing? Am I really progressing? So that question comes to my mind. So these are, let's say, two things that come to mind.
Ooh. See, and this is the beauty of powerful questions, the insights it brings, right? And how it makes us think and reflect. That was a question that was super powerful for me to go after moving abroad. That was one of the first catalyst questions that really changed my life. Another powerful question is kind of, what is success to you?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you're asking me now.
I mean, I'm putting you on the spot again. This is becoming a coaching session. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm out of I came from a vacation where I was with my parents and with my wife, and I went off with vacation with my parents after 7 years, and of course,
Wow.
I got married a couple of years ago. So first vacation was first time, and I realized, okay, I would want this to happen every year. Every year, I should be able to spend at least 15 days or a month, because in India, vacation are 1 week and 2 weeks. It's not like, so that's, I'm just saying, maybe a month. So that able, next September I should be able to do that. That will be success for me. Let's say one.
Yes.
There could be many, but this is one.
One piece, one important piece.
Yeah.
And how
Yes.
beautiful.
I feel because what happened, I think I've added few more years to my parents' life, is how I feel now, because of this has happened.
Wow. It was a powerful trip, it sounds like a powerful vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you for actually sharing those questions. And of course, I'm sure with my, let's say, answers, some of the viewers now, they would be also thinking. So thank you, Christine, for sharing that. Please go
Yeah,
ahead.
and thank you for sharing about how your recent vacation taught you how much you value that time with your partner and your family, right? And I think this is the beauty of powerful questions. They make us think and they cause us to reevaluate things like about our lives and it causes us to create change often, right? Because we'll be like, "Wait, oh, that's actually what I want. Oh, am I doing that? Am I living in alignment with that?" And also our answers are so telling, right? Our answers reveal more of what we want and more of what's true for us, silencing out the outside noise of others or others' expectations. And this is what is so special about coaching because it's asking those questions and really hearing someone, not just with their words, but with their kind of body language, They're
Yeah.
like an I think versus I want, and it's like, and just those subtle differences, to uncover what their answers really are, in full clarity.
I said I want, right?
Yeah, yes. There's always I always pay attention to the I should versus I will. Like those differences are huge, right?
Yeah.
Um, like I should commitment level versus I will.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Christine. I think
Mhm.
this was unplanned, but it was great. Great. You did this, and of course, it will also benefit the viewers. So, Christine, what do you see? What are the benefits an employer gets when they want to, let's say, transit from a hybrid to a completely remote first organization, or from traditional to a hybrid organization? So, what advantages
Mm.
you see? Let's say both from an employer point of view, because a lot of from an employee point of view is a lot people did talk about it, but I would love to hear your thoughts there as well.
Yeah, I mean, so you're asking an employer's benefit of, say, moving to remote?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, happy employees. Let's well, for those who love the remote work model, like employees who feel trusted and valued, I really feel show up at their best. So remote work, I feel, breeds trust and feeling valued because you're given the freedom to work wherever and feeling trusted, right? So I really believe that happy employees lead to more productive employees, right? I mean, I think of even me as a contributor in my roles, and whenever I felt valued and supported, I showed up at my best for my work, right?
Hmm.
Um, when I felt undervalued or misaligned with my values, I struggle to show up with my work, right? And I think this is true for many. Another reason why values alignment is so important. But so they have the benefit of that. I mean, lower costs considering not needing office space, lower costs in terms of, well, benefits for the environment, right? Less employees commuting. I think it requires a lot more intentionality and planning, but it really can lower the cost for employers. And if a remote culture is built really strong and really stable, I think it's a way for it's success for a company, a thriving company. Um, I love how also remote companies, they save a lot of costs, say, with office space, but repurpose those for in-person connection once or twice a year, right? And how awesome that employees get to meet in person so they get that experience, but in maybe a great destination, right? Um,
Yes.
and another way they feel valued is by this annual or biannual retreat. So, yeah, I believe there are a lot of benefits. Those are some of them.
Thank you, Christine, for sharing that. Before we end this conversation, I have one final question for you. You mentioned effective communication as a very key skill. Okay, how can one be more intentional about building a communication, because you mentioned about having a, let's say, a water cooler conversation on Slack, having a networking virtually, right? But then how can
Yeah.
one go about it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think effective communication is so key remotely. And I think it's knowing, well, it depends in different contexts. In the sense of a remote worker in a remote company, it's knowing your company's communication channels and how to effectively use them. So knowing kind of the tier of what use for different um things that you need to communicate, what is the best channel to communicate that and how? And I think effective remote companies have this detailed out as kind of um, have this detailed out in a handbook for employees remotely, right? So they know, okay, for Slack, we correspond on these types of requests. For if it's an urgent request, I call up my manager, right? So I think it's having really clear guidelines so that employees can clearly follow those. But on the employee side, it's really being aware of those guidelines and being intentional with how you follow those. And I love the word intentional so much. So it's just really, as you're getting ready to communicate something, reflecting, and then being intentional about what channel you use or how you communicate that.
Thank you, Christian, for sharing interesting perspectives on. I think we covered a lot of topics, be it from communication to networking,
Yes.
to coaching, to building lifestyle, work life integration. I think we will have to do one more podcast, because I think there's a lot we can go deeper into. But thank you for accepting my invitation and joining me on this podcast. If you have any message for the viewers, feel free to share with them, and also if they would like to connect with you, how do they reach out to you?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And I loved that little to hear more about you and those or that little excerpt on powerful questions and hearing more of your answers. And yes, so general like word of advice is, I guess we've talked a lot about fear, right? And how fear can hold people back from, and how the past couple of years have taught us a lot about fear, right? So I would say don't let fear limit you from what you want in your life, whether that be your career or lifestyle, like building, going after moving abroad and building a lifestyle like this. Like there's so much beauty on the other side. And if your intuition is nudging you towards doing something, there's a reason. And you don't want fear to block intuition, because intuition is your inner guidance. And that's ultimately what you really want. So I guess intuition over fear is my piece of advice. And in terms of how to get in touch with me, I know we're on LinkedIn Live right now. LinkedIn is a great channel. I also have a website, which is kvieracoaching.com. You can follow where I am in Latin America on Instagram at Kristen C. Vieira. And then, yeah, I would say the best channel to message me is LinkedIn. And I would be happy to hear from you and to see how I can support.
Thank you, Christine, once again. And thank you, viewers, for watching this episode of Virtual Global Leadership Podcast. And I promise I'll be getting fantastic folks, fantastic leaders to share their experiences on the purposeful work they are doing, and also to learn from their challenges, failures, and their life experience in general. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.